All right, Kerry, we're going to be talking today about the second paragraph of the new Business Solutions Agreement, which most sellers don't even realize is their contract with Amazon. And a lot of the other companies out there talk about the terms of service and the participation agreement when this is the contract. So, me and you looked at it, we reviewed it, we have some pages of notes here, and you mentioned velocity limits. When it comes to the second paragraph in the Business Solutions Agreement, it's entitled Service Fee Payments. What is velocity limits and what is your concern with this new contract?
The second paragraph of the BSA basically allows Amazon to hold your money for any reason at all, without explanation.
Now, this has always been the case.
It's always been the case. Velocity, like some of the reasons that Amazon will require you to verify your information are if you just basically are successful too quickly. If you didn't have many sales and then you like suddenly get an influx of sales.
That's absurd.
Yes.
It's absurd that Amazon is strengthening the Business Solutions Agreement, strengthening the contract it has with its sellers, that if you're doing well, Amazon may ding you.
If you do well too soon, yes.
Yes, and it doesn't take into account Amazon advertising. It doesn't take into account things that you're specifically allowed to do. Mm-hmm. It just gives Amazon the ability to ding you if all of a sudden you're using possibly a launch company.
Right, if you launch a promotion, things are just going too well too suddenly, they suspect that you're gaming the system in some way, misusing the sales rank.
And these have been big issues for plans of action. I mean, we win them. We win them on appeal. Sometimes we have to go to escalations, but we win these things. But I think what sellers need to know is that the new BSA is leaving the door even more open for Amazon to come down on you simply for being successful. Mm-hmm. What are the other topics you had on your list before we get to mine?
Well, just other ways that Amazon basically shuts sellers down without, having to explain why. One thing we see commonly is a violation of the seller code of conduct, which basically means that, basically all they're saying is that the sellers somehow game the system, just like with the velocity limit, but they give no explanation for why, and they don't even give it an option to appeal most of the time.
Well, what I kind of like about the changes in this paragraph is that it creates, I think, more ambiguity, and therefore gives us a lot more creative ways of crafting winning arguments to get sellers reinstated. Let's talk a bit about how Amazon and your credit card, your bank account, and all the different things that Amazon is asking for in terms of identification. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, they basically require a certain amount of information. They require you to demonstrate, that it's valid at any point in time. I think, as long as you're authorized to use that information and it matches, you have documentation to prove it, shouldn't be a problem. However,
the documentation, I gotta tell you, I know I cut you off all the time.
That's okay.
I'm sorry. So I think the documentation, the ongoing process, is actually a good thing for sellers, because then it'll allow sellers that if they get dinged for one reason, to provide documentation under paragraph 2 of the Business Solutions Agreement to sort of add to the persuasive nature of it. So I think that's good. The ongoing nature of consistently having to provide information, maybe that's not so hot. Right. I think you were going to start talking about being authorized to use other people's names. Was that where you were going?
Well, yeah. I think, we see commonly like sellers who are authorized to use another brand name, another company's name, and sort of operate as that company on Amazon because they're an authorized representative. As far as, maintaining multiple accounts and things like that, you just got to really be able to prove that you're, with documentation that you're authorized to operate at, as who you're operating as.
So I see this as a related account. This might be really good for people who are operating related accounts, operating multiple accounts, because it says your or a business you're authorized to. So maybe
it allows for that, right?
It seems to allow for related accounts. Now, I know later on in the agreement it says you can only have one account, but I think that if you get caught with related accounts, you can argue what's in paragraph 2 of the Business Solutions Agreement. And again, many people, companies, consultants, and sellers don't even know what this document is. This is the backbone of every plan of action and every appeal. So if a seller gets caught having more than one account, right, I think some persuasive arguments could be made that they're following the new Business Solutions Agreement, paragraph 2, that specifically says you can operate accounts that you've been authorized to by other people and entities.
Yeah, and it'll even help your case if you're, sort of running a separate business as that new
100%. 100%. Now, what I did not like about this, and I don't remember if it had it before, but Amazon is reserving the right to get updated credit reports. So in other businesses like banking and finance, if you're a broker and your credit tanked because of a divorce or a death in the family, your job is at risk. And I'm a little concerned that Amazon may do this to sellers as a weeding out process.
I've always suspected that they were doing that to sellers. Especially, when they accuse them of, or, we see a lot of new sellers who try to sell on Amazon and they just they just say no. And they don't say why. I've always suspected it's, private information like that we're not always even aware of.
I agree. I think it has been. And a lot of times the business verification issues, for example, Amazon will say, they want more utility bills and stuff, but we definitely suspect, especially for sellers who are like getting a restart in life, that it seems like there's something there. And now after reviewing the new BSA in paragraph 2, maybe it's because your credit just took a nosedive after a life event. Okay, in this paragraph, Amazon has reinforced again its sole discretion to take action. I think it's really bad for sellers at the plan of action level, but when Amazon keeps so much power to itself, it's better at the arbitration level because we can say the contract is unfair and unenforceable because Amazon reserves the right to hold money indefinitely.
Those are some of the things I was speaking to up front.
Absolutely. Okay, now towards the end, it starts talking about that Amazon, the risks to Amazon, or them to shut you down, has to be substantial or material. And that kind of flies in the face of it being at their sole discretion.
Right.
How do you take that as someone who writes plans of action and someone who supervises a team of people writing plans of action, this dichotomy about Amazon having sole discretion, but also the new contract saying it has to be a substantial or material problem?
It seems very unfair and it shouldn't be enforceable to me.
But what about when you're writing a plan of action? If it was like a fairly minor violation of Amazon's policies, and paragraph 2 now says that the breach has to be substantial or material, how can we use that in a plan of action?
Well, we just, basically have to argue that the seller has followed the policy specifically, like the seller's code of conduct and the policies that they're accused of violating normally when Amazon doesn't give much of an explanation. You can sort of demonstrate that, your history is good and you haven't been manipulating the sales rank or the system at all. They should be able to, they should have to give some proof that, you've made a material violation.
Exactly. I was waiting for you to say it. I was like, come on, Carrie, say it, say it. So that's exactly where I see this also, that in a really great persuasive plan of action, you can argue that if there was some violation, if the picture was slightly off, if it wasn't, exactly a white background, or the keywords were slightly off out of 100 keywords, whatever you can use, and 2, you had a misspelling, or the listing wasn't perfect, you can argue that, hey, look, Amazon, look at paragraph 2 of the new BSA. If there was any issue, it was not material and it was not substantial. And I think that's what makes the difference in us writing the plan of action versus somebody else working out of their basement writing a plan of action, is we can identify what is material, what is substantial, and what is not, and use paragraph 2 of the new BSA to help sellers get reinstated. Now, you cannot write a great plan of action these days unless you can read Amazon's contract. And it's certainly not the most complex contract in the world, but it certainly helps having lawyers on board to say what does material mean? What does Black's Law Dictionary mean for material? What is substantial? Okay, so that comes to the sole discretion. In this paragraph, Amazon also added again, if we determine, keeping the decision-making power within Amazon, which means you have to write really persuasive plans of action. So what is your team's plan to use the new contract to write more persuasive plans of action so that sellers get reinstated really quickly?
Well, our plan is just to sort of throw some of this language right back at them. seems to work the best with Amazon. They can't really say they didn't sign on to something. So
That's exactly what I was hoping you would say.
right.
Screenshots of Amazon's own language in the plan of action. Here is your language. Here are how we complied. Here is your language. Here's why the issue was insignificant. And I think that this particular paragraph is just absolutely great for sellers because it gives you so many arguments to make that if you did have a problem, it was insignificant, not substantial, and not material. Okay, guys, keep on watching these videos. You need to know what your contract with Amazon says. If anyone's writing a plan of action for you and they cannot read and interpret a contract, do not use them at all, okay? And if you need any more assistance, give us a call, contact us, email Carrie directly 24/7. She loves never sleeping for sellers. Carrie, thanks for joining me. I know you don't love doing these videos, but I think it's absolutely vital that we tell Amazon sellers about every single change in the contract that they have with Amazon sellers.
All right. Thank you.